Hello everyone, I have another video for you today. I have 2 more Reddit stories. I hope you enjoy. Here is the title of the first story. It was just a normal day at work. Until she walked in and changed everything. I was never the type to believe in fate. Life, in my eyes, was a series of random events, a tangled mess of choices and coincidences. I had always been skeptical about those who claim things happen for a reason, or that the universe has a way of aligning itself. But everything changed the day I met her. That was the day I found out how wrong I was. It all started on a random Tuesday, just another regular workday in my uneventful life. I woke up late, threw on a wrinkled shirt, grabbed my half-drunk coffee from the night before, and dragged myself to work. I worked as an IT guy in a small company that dealt with corporate clients. Nothing exciting, just a desk job. I spent my days troubleshooting, fixing systems, and dealing with complaints. My coworkers were decent, but I didn't have much in common with them. I wasn't a fan of office small talk or happy hour gatherings. I kept to myself, and that was the way I liked it. But that Tuesday was different. The office was buzzing with an unusual amount of activity. People were chatting, laughing, and even walking around the building in a way I hadn't seen before. I assumed some meeting had gone longer than expected, but it wasn't until I reached my desk that I found out why. "Hey man, have you seen the new girl?" My colleague, Matt, leaned over the partition of my cubicle, a grin spreading across his face. "The new girl?" I asked, barely glancing up from my screen. "Yeah. She started today. Totally different vibe than the usual crowd." "Great," I muttered. "Another person to ignore." Matt chuckled. "You'll see what I mean. She's kind of electric. You won't be able to miss her." I didn't think much of it. I had seen plenty of new hires come and go in my time at the company. But that afternoon, everything changed when she walked into the office. I was working on a server issue when I noticed the office fall silent. A few of the guys stopped what they were doing and glanced over toward the entrance. I didn't think much of it at first, but then I saw her. She wasn't like the others. She was tall, with dark, wavy hair that seemed to shimmer in the fluorescent office lights. She wore a simple black dress, nothing too flashy, but it fit her perfectly. There was something about her, though, a presence that seemed to make the entire room shift when she walked in. I quickly turned my attention back to the server, not wanting to seem like I was staring, but my mind wandered back to her. Her energy was different. She wasn't the typical office drone, mindlessly shuffling through the day. No, she had this fire, this unspoken intensity that drew you in, whether you wanted to be or not. It wasn't long before our paths crossed. The next morning, I was tasked with helping her get set up with her workstation. She had the same annoyed look on her face that I probably had every morning when I was asked to do something out of my usual routine. I made my way to her desk, trying to avoid eye contact, but she caught me before I could turn away. "You're the IT guy, right?" Her voice was sharp, but not unkind. I nodded. "That's me. Need help with something?" "Yeah. This thing isn't working," she said, gesturing to her computer, which seemed to be frozen. I kneeled down beside her desk, adjusting her mouse to see if I could fix it. As I worked, I couldn't help but notice the faint scent of lavender that lingered in the air. It was subtle, but it made my pulse quicken for reasons I didn't understand. I stayed quiet, focusing on the computer, but I could feel her eyes on me. It wasn't uncomfortable, but it was intense. When I finally finished, I stood up and handed her the mouse. She didn't thank me, but she did smile, not the kind of polite office smile you give someone you barely know, but the kind of smile that made it seem like she knew something I didn't. "Thanks," she said simply, before turning back to her work. It was then that I realized something strange. I was intrigued. And for the first time in a long time, I wanted to know more about her. But I couldn't. I couldn't allow myself to get involved with someone like her. I had a reputation to maintain. I didn't want to become another office cliché, the guy who falls for the new girl. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something about her was different. Over the next few weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I noticed the way she moved, the way she carried herself with such quiet confidence. She didn't ask for attention, but she commanded it. People started gravitating toward her, and I could tell that she didn't need anyone to validate her. She was a force all on her own. It was a Friday when it happened. I was sitting at my desk, trying to finish up a report when she walked into the break room, looking a bit flustered. I didn't think much of it at first. After all, people were always running around here at the end of the week, trying to finish up their tasks. But when I heard her mutter under her breath, something caught my attention. This is insane. How did I get myself into this mess? I paused, unsure if I should say something or just keep my head down. But there was something in her voice that made me get up and walk over to her. Everything all right? I asked, trying to sound casual, though I was more than a little curious. She turned to me, surprised by the sudden interruption. Yeah, just, you know how it is. Same old work drama. I nodded, but I could see the tension in her eyes. I hadn't seen her like this before. She was always so composed, always the one who held it together. I wasn't sure what to say, so I stood there awkwardly for a moment. If you need someone to talk to, I said, trying to sound sincere, I'm a pretty good listener. She looked at me, her expression softening for just a moment before the walls went back up. Thanks, but I'll be fine. Just tired, I guess. And just like that, she was gone, retreating back into her office. But I couldn't stop thinking about what she said. What was going on in her life? Why did she seem so perfect on the outside, but so frazzled on the inside? That night, I decided to stay late and finish some work, hoping the office would be quieter. As I was wrapping up, I noticed her walking out of her office again, glancing around the room. She didn't see me at first, but I watched as she walked toward the door. It was then that I noticed something strange. She was holding a box in her hands. It was small, but it looked heavy. I stood up and approached her. Hey, you need some help with that? She looked up, startled. For a moment, she seemed to hesitate, as if debating whether to let someone in. Then, with a sigh, she nodded. Yeah, actually. I'm heading out for the night, and need to get this to my car. I grabbed the box from her and followed her out of the office, my curiosity getting the better of me. As we walked through the parking lot, she seemed lost in thought, not saying much. When we reached her car, she unlocked the trunk, and I placed the box inside. She turned to me with a tired smile. Thanks, really? I don't know why I didn't ask anyone else for help. No problem, I said, trying to sound nonchalant. But I could tell something was off. She hesitated for a second before speaking again. You know, there's a lot I don't tell people here. It's easier that way. I nodded, unsure of what to say. I get it. Sometimes it's better to keep things to yourself. She studied me for a moment, then gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Yeah. Maybe. As she got in her car and drove away, I stood there for a while, staring at the empty parking lot. It was then that I realized this wasn't just some random coworker I was dealing with. This was someone who was hiding something, someone who was more than she seemed. And whether I liked it or not, I was already caught up in her world. That was the moment when I knew everything was about to change. Forever. That is the end of the first story. My goodness. Toned, tan, fit, and ready. She is tall as well. This girl sounds dreamy. She also has some mystique about her. I personally prefer brown girls, but this girl won my heart from a damn Reddit post. And she isn't even the one writing it. Plenty of fish in the sea, but damn, I get jealous sometimes. Let's get to the next story. Here is the title. The unbelievable story of the woman who came from my dreams, and then she showed me the truth. It was a rainy Thursday when I met her, but that's not where the story starts. It actually starts much earlier, in a place that feels like it was another lifetime ago. A place I never thought I'd be again. But here I am, sitting in a quiet bar with nothing but the sound of glass clinking and the occasional laugh in the background, recounting a story I never thought I'd have to tell. I never expected to meet someone like her. She wasn't the type of woman you just bump into at the grocery store or meet on a random night out. No, she was different. She was otherworldly, like she belonged in some dream I could never escape. Her name was Luna, but I don't know if that was her real name. Honestly, I don't think I'll ever know the truth about who she was. And maybe that's the most tragic part of all of this. I met her at a friend's party. To be honest, I wasn't even supposed to go. I had just come off a breakup, and I was deep in my own thoughts about life, love, and everything in between. My friends convinced me to tag along to take my mind off things. They promised it would be a casual night, nothing serious, just good food, drinks, and maybe a few laughs. And it started like that. People were gathered around the kitchen, talking about random nonsense, sports, work, and relationships. I was nursing a beer in the corner, not really paying attention to anyone. But then she walked in. She didn't storm in like some movie star. No, it was more subtle than that. It was as if the room noticed her presence before she even spoke. Her hair was dark, flowing, and wild. It almost looked like she had just stepped out of a forest, untamed and full of mystery. Her eyes were the color of storm clouds, shifting from gray to blue, depending on the light. She wore a simple dress that clung to her in a way that was both graceful and effortless. The moment I saw her, I felt something shift inside me. I'd never believed in love at first sight. Hell, I'd barely believed in love itself anymore. But there was something about her that made my heart race in a way I hadn't felt in years. She didn't look like the kind of person who needed to impress anyone. She had a quiet confidence that commanded attention. She wasn't loud or overbearing, yet everyone seemed to gravitate toward her. I watched as she moved through the room, chatting with people, laughing, her presence radiating an undeniable charm. And that's when she caught my eye. She didn't look at me the way most people do when they're sizing you up. No, her gaze was different, intense, almost as if she could see right through me. Like she knew everything there was to know about me, even though we had never exchanged a word. Before I knew it, she was standing next to me, leaning against the counter as if she'd been there the whole time. "You look like you're in another world," she said, her voice smooth and melodic, like the wind rustling through leaves on a quiet night. I chuckled awkwardly, not sure how to respond. "Yeah, just thinking about life." She smiled, and I swear the room got a little brighter. "Careful, you might get lost in those thoughts. People tend to get lost when they think too much." I looked at her, intrigued by the way she spoke, like everything she said held a deeper meaning. It wasn't just the words, it was the way she said them, the way she carried herself. She wasn't like anyone I had ever met. "I'm Luna," she said, offering me a hand. "And you are?" "Jake," I replied, shaking her hand. Her touch was electric, sending a jolt through my body. "Jake," she repeated, like she was savoring the name. "Nice to meet you." The night went on, but I barely noticed the others. Luna and I were in our own world, chatting about everything and nothing. She had a way of making you feel like you were the most important person in the room. It was both intoxicating and terrifying. I was so drawn to her that I couldn't focus on anything else. I was hooked. Over the next few days, I found myself thinking about her constantly. I couldn't stop replaying our conversations in my head, analyzing every word, every glance. I wanted to see her again, but I didn't know how. She didn't give me any way to reach her, no phone number, no social media handle. It was like she just existed in this fleeting moment of time. Then, as if by magic, she reached out to me. It was a text, simple and to the point. "Hey, Jake. I had a great time talking with you. Want to do it again?" I couldn't believe it. I stared at my phone, not sure if I should respond right away or play it cool. But I didn't care about playing it cool. I wanted her. I wanted to know everything about her. We started talking every day, texting late into the night. It felt like we were creating our own world, a space where nothing else mattered except the connection between us. The more we talked, the more I felt like I was falling under her spell. She told me about her life, her travels, the things she had seen and done. She was so full of mystery, so full of stories that seemed too fantastic to be true, but I couldn't help but believe her. But as much as I was drawn to her, something about her felt off. There were moments, small moments, where I felt like she wasn't telling me everything. She would avoid certain questions or change the subject abruptly. Sometimes, when we were together, I would catch her staring into the distance, like she wasn't really there with me. I brushed it off. After all, she was just different, right? Maybe she was the type of person who liked to keep certain things to herself. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a weekend, and we decided to go for a drive. We were in her car, just cruising around, talking about everything and nothing. I felt like we were in sync, like we were meant to be there together, in that moment. But then she pulled over on the side of the road, in a place I didn't recognize. Where are we going? I asked, confused. Just trust me, she said, her voice low, almost secretive. She got out of the car and started walking into the woods. Luna, I called out, but she didn't answer. I hesitated for a moment, but then my curiosity got the best of me, and I followed her. I didn't know how far we walked, but it felt like we were moving in circles, deeper and deeper into the trees. I could barely see the sky anymore. The canopy had grown so thick. Finally, we reached a small clearing. There, in the middle of it, was a large, ancient-looking stone structure. It looked like something out of a dream, or a nightmare. Luna stood in front of it, her back to me, her arms outstretched as if she was offering something to the stone. This is where I belong, she said, her voice distant. What are you talking about? I asked, my heart racing. This didn't feel right. She turned to face me, her expression unreadable. I'm not who you think I am, Jake. I've been trying to protect you from the truth, but it's time you knew. Before I could respond, she took my hand and pulled me toward the stone. And that's when it happened. The world around us shifted. It felt like the air was thick with energy, and everything around me blurred. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to pull away, but her grip was unbreakable. I've been waiting for you, she whispered, and in that moment I realized Luna wasn't just a dreamy woman I'd met at a party. She was something else, something darker. And I had no idea just how deep I had gotten myself into. The next thing I knew, I was back in my car, driving home, the whole experience feeling like a bad dream. I never saw Luna again after that night. But here I am, months later, sitting in this bar, haunted by the memory of a woman who I still don't fully understand. She's out there somewhere. And I know, deep down, that she'll come back for me. That is the end of the story. I love that name. Luna is so pretty. I would love to see what this woman looks like. I don't know about you guys, but I like my women crazy. So I'm totally down to do some walking through stones for this woman. I do not care. I hope you enjoyed the stories. There is a link in the description for my Reddit Stories playlist. Go watch them if you like. Have a great day.